If you're here looking for a quick fix, the one secret thing that's going to make you lose £100 in 6 months, this isn't it. And I know some of you clicked here thinking that this might be a Rocky montage, a workout routine, a diet plan, or how you too for $29.99 a month can get shredded. But that isn't this. What this is the final lap. What you didn't see were the 10, 11 laps that I was running in the dark before anyone noticed I was running. This is the story of how I did manage to lose £100, but how it took so much longer than you think. A few years ago, I was in a real bad place. Physically, I was unfit, broken, and beyond caring about it. Mentally, I lost my identity, and I truly hit rock bottom. And I mean rock bottom. In 2021, I decided to take my own life, and I stuck a knife through my arm in an attempt to bleed out in my kitchen. I didn't want to be here anymore. Didn't see the point. Wanted the pain and the frustration to end. And luckily, although I didn't feel like it was lucky at the time, my wife Janine found me. So when I say this didn't start with a gym membership, a meal plan, it started then. And it started with therapy. Therapy I didn't want to go to. It started with finally being honest with myself, realizing you're not weak, you're just carrying more than you could handle alone. And it started with actually wanting to get better. The therapy that I had, I couldn't actually tell you what was said or point to a specific epiphany. I enjoyed the chats that I was having with the military veteran service. And at the time, that was enough. It was enough to just enjoy the process of sitting there and talking with that therapist. And it was about taking it day by day. I learned a lot. I learned a lot about myself, but I also learned a lot about veterans and how veterans share similar reactions to trauma and to setbacks and life. And I don't know why, I found immense comfort in being told how identically we all react. And now there is a stigma about reaching out, especially for men, especially for soldiers. But I do think it's getting better. And this actually wasn't my first therapy that I'd been to. After my tour of Iraq in 2008, the Army sent me for psychiatric treatment. Maybe even underscoring the stigma that gets attached to it, the Army tells everyone that you're going for physio, doesn't put it down as mental health. Now, I'd broken my ankle on a course, and during a routine checkup, I'm sitting there with a doctor. It's a civilian doctor, and the machines are ancient and they take ages to pull your file up. I'm sitting there in silence. And I can sit there in silence and be awkward, but the doctor couldn't. And the doctor was trying to fill that awkward silence with chit-chat, which I was not really keen on answering. And then he said something along the lines of, how have you been sleeping? And I don't know why. I decided to answer him, and I decided to be honest. I said, I actually haven't slept in months. And that was the case. I hadn't slept, couldn't sleep. Just wouldn't fall asleep, just lie there awake for months. And the doctor panicked, and he referred me to go and get assessed, and I went. It was quick, 8 sessions at Catterick, and then I was discharged, which probably was the worst thing that could happen to me, because in my head, I'd checked that box. I've been to therapy, I've seen a psychiatrist, I've seen a shrink, and he says I'm sound. I think I'm cured, and I don't need help. So anything that happens after this, well, I've already seen a shrink, and he said I'm sound, so whatever this is, it isn't mental health that needs looking into. I'm sorted. The therapy that I had with Alice years later felt completely different. I started appreciating the things that I have. And it was actually a major reason for starting this channel, Howson IRL. Spending more meaningful time, deliberate time, carving out time to spend with my wife, Janine. It gave me an excuse to do something. It didn't feel like I was not working hard enough. I'd schedule in some hikes, I'd schedule in some camping, and I can make content out of it, so it's work. And that was good. Doing something I love with someone I love. That helped. And therapy helped me understand my mind and maybe even come to terms with wanting to be alive or not wanting to be alive. But to do that, there was more at stake. There was other processes that I had to go through. And a big one was to reclaim my identity. Now, to all of you guys pretty much, and certainly most of the people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis, I'm that YouTube guy. I talk about United. That's who people see me as, but it's not who I see myself as. I fell into doing this, but it isn't who I am. And I needed to see myself as me again. And I think a lot of veterans go through this where when they make the decision to leave the army, they kind of disconnect themselves from the army. And I think they do that to justify their decision to leave. Don't want to leave and then almost be like harking back, wishing that they hadn't left maybe. So a lot of people do a hard stop and maybe even deny their service and deny the people that they served with. It takes a while to come all the way back and be okay with accepting who you were, accepting the people that you served with, and opening back up to that, which is what I've done recently, and I feel amazing for doing so. I feel like me again. Now that turned out to be a longer road to get to the realization of doing that. But the longest road was fixing the injuries and the broken body. I wish I could sit here and say there was a medical reason why I piled the weight on, but there wasn't. It was lack of discipline, lack of structure, probably a little bit of depression and coping over the last decade or so. And I hadn't run. I couldn't run. I was hiking. I was tabbing quite frequently, partly because it was a mental grind and I did enjoy the mental grind, partly because it was relatively lower impact, which made it manageable and I could go and do that. But I was breaking myself on the tabs, especially around Remembrance Sunday. And I didn't actually realize I was doing this until my wife pointed it out to me. But every November, I would push myself to breaking point. Why? Shame, regret, frustration, guilt. I felt like a fucking failure. I felt like where I was in life didn't represent who I identify with being. And maybe that burst of motivation, that kicking out at the situation I find myself in was my punishment for what I became. And that motivation would come in bursts, but it lacked direction, it lacked discipline, and it didn't have any level of consistency. And I was in chronic pain. I had no mobility from that ankle break back in 2008. My calves locked up whenever I walked faster. Plantar fasciitis was a frequent tormentor because my feet weren't conditioned. And I weighed 280 pounds. Step one was surgery for the compartment syndrome. My calves would swell with blood. They'd harden up. That would prevent you from flexing your feet, which means you can't really walk and you certainly can't run. And that would lead to constant pulled muscles and constant calf strains. So I went private, got the operation done, and I was shocked at how straightforward and easy it was. I'd been to the NHS and been dismissed for half a dozen times over this, maybe over 10 years. Went private, I got it done. It took weeks, honestly. But after surgery, get it to test out the new wheels, I jumped straight into doing a 457 kilometre march to one of the 457 lads that we lost in Afghanistan. 10 kilometres a day, carrying weight. Felt great at first. I actually lost 35 pounds doing it. But in doing it, I developed plantar fasciitis, which hasn't really fully gone away. I went far too quick and I was far too heavy. I tried running during the World Cup out in Qatar and I would constantly pull my calf, think it was healed, try again, pull it again. Months went by, healing, feeling like I can go again, attempting to go again, re-injuring myself. And frustration built. Got to the point where I wasn't sure I would ever run again. Really didn't think it was going to be something in my future. Maybe I can just get away with doing some hikes, but I ain't going to be running. And I started doing some mobility work. Followed Knees Over Toes guy on Instagram. Started doing some of the exercises. Started doing the program religiously. And it was working in my living room every morning, quietly, putting the days in to strengthen and developed some flexibility in my calves and in my ankles. And very slowly it started to work. But it was a dark, frustrating, awful period because he couldn't push to the level I wanted to. And I genuinely didn't feel like I was ever going to be running again. And in all honesty, because of the plantar fasciitis and even the mobility, I just wanted to hike again without pain. And I probably would have been happy with that. This last 6 months where the weight actually came off, it looks like it was rapid progress. But it took me years of tiny little dominoes falling in the right order. And I think a massive one was that identity as a soldier. And it felt like over the last year, maybe 18 months, every month I felt like I was doing something with the army, visiting places from my past. I was being asked to help out with recruitment, exploring the ideas of rejoining, being in the environment again. It reminded me of who and what I used to be: disciplined, capable, dangerous. And I'd forgotten that. Now, a real game-changing moment was that combat shooting course that I did with Jay in Wales, surrounded by former military, surrounded by UK Special Forces, the blokes, and that whole mindset, something clicked. Now, as you know from the previous video, I quit Red Bull. That brought 1,000 calories a day worth of deficit. I replaced it with a caffeine drink that has got 0 calories. And I intensified my mobility and physio work. Started seeing a physio every week. Returning from the trip to America for pre-season tour, my wife Janine challenged me to do 30 days on the Stairmaster. I'd just done 21 days without an energy drink, and I was ready. And that routine sparked discipline, structure, momentum. And then the weight started coming off. And as soon as I started to see the weight come off, it fired me up. And we had momentum then. I tightened up my diet. I went boring. I was having chicken Caesar salad for lunch, chicken and rice for tea. Is it imaginative? Nope. Is it boring? Yep. Is it effective? Fucking right it is, yeah. And I also wasn't craving. I don't know why. I love a hobnob, chocolate, snacks, crisp. Just wasn't interested. So I ended up in a really big, decent-sized calorie deficit for months. Now, my physio recently said to me, when I first came to him, what do I think my goal was? And I went, running? And he said, nah. So you said you just wanted to walk down the stairs without holding on. And yeah, I used to have to get up in the morning because of the lack of mobility. Until I warmed up, I couldn't go downstairs. I had to hold on to the wall. Now I am so far beyond that, it's astonishing just how small, consistent effort has built up over time. It feels like it all clicked at once. Now the weight loss obviously is visual and it has been dramatic, but the habits and the wants behind it have compounded into the result. Now I put myself into a fitness challenge, the hybrid games. It's like a high rock style event. Give my training some actual aim. It started with the weight loss. I wanted to lose weight, but it's morphed into chasing performance, which is where I am now, what I'm doing now. And I'm just turning up every day, trying to get better, trying to shave minutes and seconds off my 5K times and trying to lift heavier and go further. IRL channel, the fitness challenges, running again, tracking meals, stopping energy drinks. The visible transformation is losing 100 pounds. But more importantly, I am still here. My kids still have a dad. My wife still has a husband. Because there was a time when I didn't want that to be the case. Right now, I feel stronger, clearer. I feel more capable than I have in 15 years. The real victory is I'm happy in my skin. I'm comfortable with who I am, knowing who I am, and I know I'm not finished. Maybe I never will be. I've booked in all sorts of fitness challenges for this year, maybe trying to make up for that lost decade I had feeling sorry for myself. But that's okay. I have a purpose, and I am reclaiming that identity that I lost. Now, I want you to listen, because we all do struggle. I want you to know that if you are struggling, then you aren't alone. And it's a hard thing to get through to those who don't want to hear it. You couldn't have told me. You couldn't have told me a few weeks ago when I was feeling down. But I will keep saying it. Listen, you are stronger than you think. You just got to keep showing up. Today, the next day, and the next day. This isn't about weight loss. For me, it was about reclaiming who I am and living it and owning it. You've got to fix what's upstairs. That's what's going to be what allows you to achieve whatever goal you've got. But you do have to fix this. Now, we're told by social media constantly that we're behind. That if you haven't got a house yet, you're not driving a new car, you're not good enough. People only show you the highlight reels. I want you to see reality. It took me 4 years to lose that weight in 6 months. The long way is the shortcut. You move at your own pace. You can go as slow as you want, but you're not allowed to stop. Thanks for watching. And thank you for listening. And even though it wasn't my intention on that recent Instagram post, thank you for listening and for the kind words. If not just for me, there's a lot of other people who needed to hear them as well. Now, I'm going to do a follow-up podcast with Janine because she's got a lot to say about this video as well. So please drop your questions, your comments down below. And remember, whatever path you are on, I'm rooting for you. We are rooting for you. Cheers.